Hello, everybody. And we're here again with another episode of the Danny and Troy show. And we're still in the midst of adventures of Drukpa and the creative writing aspects, which is given, not only the entertaining aspect of this story that's developing, but the insight into creative writing itself and the process that's involved and what I love about it is the freedom that it brings to write, to flow, to let things actually come out as they are, bouncing around your mind, and turning it into a creative expression, which Danny's been showing
You know,
us how.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, over to you, Danny.
There's so many influences that affect me. We'll just call me the writer.
Mm-hmm.
As I process this information, it's always, you've seen the picture of the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other, right? And it's like constantly questioning myself, my morality, if I have one, my values and everything as I go through. And it's an exercise in streaming, stream of consciousness, maybe, without editing myself in the process. And at the same time, on the other shoulder, the doubtful one is saying, do you know where you're going? And it's like, that's not the time for this right now. Creating and editing are two separate processes. And, there's certain things that really must become second nature to the writer, who says to him or herself, I know it's going to be happening, but the only element of control is being able to converse with my thoughts and to translate them into some identifiable language, right? Like in this case, it would be English. And with the stipulation that would be nice if it was understandable, but the cleaning up part of it is editing. Right. And so as I go through this whole process, me, the voices and everything else are going through this process, this discovery can be quite unsettling and rewarding. And so as all of these options are weighed in the process, it's good to actually be able to get through a section, go back and read it, clean it up a little bit, make sure at least it's got some flow to it without being too harsh on oneself.
Sure.
All those are minor accomplishments that affect the rest of my life.
Wow. Yeah.
Not just this thing we're doing, right? So what's happening, and this one is following resurrection, right?
Great.
He's well, I don't want to spoil it, but this is after, I don't want to say, I would call it after his awakening. I wouldn't call it his enlightenment. Okay. I think that's asking for too much. So he's going through that process, which was actually his acceptance of sitting and doing nothing. And then once he got the message from sitting and doing nothing, this is how it's processing within his self. Ready?
Ready.
The whirlpool. Spiraling into doubt was an endless whirlpool. The Kraken. It would pull him under and snuff his life. Innocent enough. Suck the juices out of him like a spider. What was he being told? How could he be sure he wasn't being manipulated? He couldn't. Where did this idea come from anyway? Was his mind captured? Was he himself? That's what work was all about. Use people's energy. Use it up. Make husks of them. Don't kill them yet. They've still got some work left in them. he heard his Austrian friend say in Riga, would be wasteful. Utilitarianism. Too soon to die. You can still be of some use. Who's the boss? Who's the boss? Kinky Mouse? Where was his dignity if people were always telling him what was right, what was real and what was not? People were automatons. What good are they? Absolutely nothing. Needed a flood. You got one? Another one? Just sold the last one to a guy with antennas, green skin, and snake-like eyes. Well, how about an Armageddon? All-consuming fire. Well, now let's see. Yep. Got one by nuclear fire. How much? This one's free. You got a permit? No, don't need one. Maybe they're making all this shit up. Well, could be. Would you like it wrapped? You got any? We got plenty. But you're going to have to pay now and no returns. Money is the eternal enterprise, the symbol of debt and repayment, haves and have-nots, success and failure. Self-fulfilling prophecy, I think we were about to say. Hey, yeah. I can wrap it up in our latest biblical look. Tell me what you think. Old Testament or New? Huh? You got any Torahs? Plenty. Sheepskin or parchment? What'll it be? How about the white bridal dress, symbolic of purity, you know? I don't know, gotta be a surprise. Okay, how about money? We could wrap it in dollar bills. Won't be any good afterwards, though. Anyway, hundreds? Sure thing. Okay, I'll take it. Here's your control switch, the red button. Well, thanks. Sure, you bet. Come again. I don't think so. This dude wants repeat business. Sure, bud. See ya. Hasta la vista, baby. High stakes. Winner take all. All of what's left, which ain't going to be much. Think we are programmed to the fuse to the dynamic dynamite. Exactly. They just got tired of us. Newness wore off, you know? Now we're on our own planet of retards. Forget the apes. We'll devolve. Are you devolving? What? For Drukpa, life was a waking dream, replete with the building blocks of Nightmareville. Life was a card game. The deck was stacked. The audacity of it all. Like viruses replicating. Can't keep your attention forever. What was the point then? Should he feign interest with all of his knowledge of how it was going to end, watching it rot away? He knew how the story would end. Conflagration. Not interested. Wouldn't play. Then what? Like playing with marbles. Cute, but they all looked alike. Cute, but I already have a dog. A voice called out in the darkness. Are you going to play? It would be so easy to end it all like the mini suicide of Zazen. Za, sitting, Zen, meditation, fade in, fade out, caught in the trap of least resistance. Slowly sinking to the bottom like a guy whose parachute didn't open. Comfort for the lonely and confused. Go fuck yourself. He wanted the exceptional. He wanted to live and love and be, not to escape from the world in a religion or some other haven. Once you bought into that shit, you were a goner. never to be seen or heard from again. Sorry, inhabitants of the future, of which there would be none. Are you going to sit there all day, or are you going to play? Again, Drukpa had dozed off, fingering the red button. Man, are you a zombie? Are you going to play? Oh, yeah. What's it to me? What's it to you? What's it to me? All in, all in. How many cards? I'll sit pat. Dealer takes 2. Bets? Show 'em. God damn! This game had lost its allure for Drukpa. Another winning hand. Damn it, damn it, damn it. He actually thought he sought to fail so he would take increasingly difficult tasks. Best me, beat me, he yelled, but the card player threw his hand face down on the table and stormed out of the room. He heard curses echo down the corridor. Oh well, quitters never win, winners never quit. He scraped his winnings into his hat and followed in the tracks of the bedraggled loser out of the awful place draped with remorse of the various defeated. She whispered in his ear, death is awakening. From one state to the other, death, as it is much too over applied as some obsequious master of and above all usually assigned as some evildoer under orders of Satan or some other maligned happiness eater that denies us all a chance to grip the meaning of what this is all about anyway. Forces are at play that are structured of kitchen matches and gunpowder glue. She had spoken to his mother when he had been down with a spinal tumor that someone had noticed on an MRI, and told her that his father had occupied his body and directed him to defend her. He must leave, she said to him. 2 months later, after waiting 50 years for her in the afterlife, she joined him, and Drukpa was freed from following his voice and protecting his mother as a consequence from the terrorist husband. This was real life. Finally, people had been fed a line that the life they were living was the only choice, when in fact, people were free to choose to create a life for themselves, minus the goodies dangled in front of them as bereft of any chance that there was an alternative outside of what was plastered on their faces as reality, the one, the only. Life was like a water slide. There are no options on the downward journey leading to the great splash at the bottom. If there were actually, and why not, alternatives outside of cultural adaptations, no one was talking about them. It was like on his death slide, someone were to offer an immediate dismissal and exit to a more advantageous way pre-death. They could actually take it. Outside of an alien abduction, there was no acceptable approval of acknowledging it or decisively managing it. Talk about your tar babysitters. Dismissal of public information is essential in living a complete life. One complete in the sense of living one's own life, as opposed to living a life that makes one part of the masses, that is capsulized in the herd and the fallacious equality that is pushed while knowing it is the most pernicious lie of modern times. Equality, the first step towards a herd mentality.
All right. This is a
Go
right
ahead.
in there. What's coming to mind? Well, yeah, the aspect of choosing difficult tasks so that you would actually. Oh yeah, can you hear me? Is that better?
Much better.
The yeah, hints around choosing a difficult task in order to actually, yeah, experience something of not failure, but learn from that and push yourself and challenge it. That's what one of the things that stood out for me.
Yep.
And yeah, the aspects of what you said, marbles, and I've actually got a little story around my 5th birthday. When I was only 5, I got a bag of marbles, and it kind of made me, I think, start on this track of data science, because the organizing the marbles, each one had a different color. I was very interested in knowing how many I had of this type, how many I had of that type, and which the value of the marbles. But that was all just coming out as you were talking as well, and connecting to um, that part of my life. But the winning hands and the discussions that are going on back and forth, it's reminds me a bit of this podcast called Welcome to Night Vale, where it has a radio talker. He's in this world called Night Vale, and he's just on the radio, and he's telling everybody what's going on in news and everything. It's giving me hints of that, what you're reading, and the story and the pictures that are coming to my mind. It's a great experience just to let and to be absorbed and let things flow, the words come into my mind and the pictures that are formed. So it's something that I feel I'd like to organize more, like go back and say, oh yeah, this is it, this is the point, this is, like you're saying, this is the creative process, not the editing process. But yeah, from my point of view, my I guess wanting to be, I guess, the data science aspects, let's organize it, bring it together, and enhance those images that I'm getting, and allow them to be more easily seen by others.
It's something you mentioned is very important, is that it's not necessary to make sense out of what I'm saying,
Sure.
right? But in this, he is reestablishing his perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And perspective is visual.
Right.
Right. So as he's restructuring his reality, he's pulling on all of these various perspectives, right?
Yes.
And he's sharing that with the listener or the reader.
Sure.
Right? And let's hope the reader doesn't make the mistake of presuming that he's trying to make sense.
It's perfect.
He hasn't reached that point yet.
Sure.
Right? He's still, but it's visual now, right? That means consciousness, because the different levels of consciousness, right? He's in the perspectival, which is space-time, right? Okay. And in order to do that, he has to triangulate. So he's got the Zazen point. Mm-hmm. He's got this point of where he's reestablishing himself, and he is the third point. So he has 2 points of view, right? He's here, and he's here, and he's experiencing the one he's experienced before, and now he's going in a different area. Okay. And that's symbolic, as you know, of the mental level of consciousness, right? Right. The rational, because previously he had dumped his whole life, the one that ended in a surprise of Zazen, which is principally just give up. So he's taken that road, it's like there's a Latvian joke, and it's like, oh, a Latvian comes to the road divides, and the Latvian is here. Which way does he go? And the answer is both, because in Latvia, you're halfway between the European Union and the Germans on one side,
Oh,
and the Russians or the Slavs on the other side.
right.
So they're sort of like caught between the pendulum, right?
Okay.
The invading Germans come, they take Latvia, they build the city. Then here come the Russians. And
Mhm.
so Latvians are adept at taking both options.
Right.
The Russians are occupying it. Okay, they can deal with it. The
Mhm.
Russians are chased out by the Germans. Okay, they can deal with it.
Mhm.
And this is where he is at the moment. Is he's at the road that divides, but he
Right.
knows enough that one of these ways, which he's just come from, is not the way he wants to go. It's the
Mhm.
way to nowhere,
Right. Yeah, I see that.
right?
I mean,
So now that's principally an Eastern point of view. But
yeah.
now he's on his way to looking at things from a more rational point of view,
Right.
right? As he's considering things which relate more heavily to the perspectival, not the and the mental, right? So he'll have a different process of deciding how to go forward to which perspective he's going to take. He's going to take dualism, which is good and bad, left and right, black and white, or he'll take the other one, which is the Eastern path, which principally says it's enlightenment. Whatever happens to you is good. Let's not judge it. So, he's somewhere in between at this moment in time.
Okay.
And he'll make his decision based on, and maybe we can do this later, but it opens with what happens after this is there are multiple ways the controlling interests do this. So he's a pawn, and he knows he's a pawn. But yet, as a pawn, he either says, I'm out, I'm going to sit on the mountaintop and eat lichen,
Mhm.
or, I'm going to be a pawn and I'm going to reach the other side of the board, at which time the pawn becomes a queen.
Right.
So he's basically said to the Eastern way, but I'm a player. I'm
Mhm.
part of this. I'm not a projection. I'm not nothing. I still think I'm something. So he's survived oblivion.
Mm.
And in the process, of course, he's died. That part of him has died. And then now, having been reborn or awakening from sleep under the Bodhi tree, right? He hasn't been enlightened, but he's been informed. So, whether he ends up under the tree or he, manages a ferry across the river Styx, that's left up to him. But that story's already been told. This
Mhm.
is a modern story, where when you're talking about Buddha, things are made pretty clear,
Right.
but there is no clarity in this. And that's the dilemma of the modern man. You've got to deal with none of this makes sense, right?
Well, that's a great
So
aspect, I see.
where does he go from there? And he has realized that he's just a pawn,
Mhm. Mhm.
that he doesn't have choice. He's being played with because people give him the options of which they want him to choose one or the other,
Mhm. Mhm.
east or west.
Sure.
And as we know, from our dissection of Nietzsche, master or slave. But our objective is free man, which is the third choice.
Mm.
I don't even think Nietzsche made that conclusion, but that's the conclusion that I'm going for, is what do you do as a free man when you get indoctrinated into the Eastern way, give up, there's nothing you can do, or
Mhm.
get sucked into the West, which is, you're going to be put through a meat grinder.
Mhm. Mhm.
Have a nice time, right? And we'll see now where that goes.
Okay.
Yep, but later, not now.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
so that's where we are. and he's not asking anybody to understand him, because we are invading his personal space, his personal mental space. And what he's done is he's given access to people, if they can see it this way, of, is there anything, like you were saying, is there anything in there that makes me think of something?
Right.
Marbles, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's all about marbles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
And by yeah. Okay. Whatever. So that's just a little added information about, because I think this is a perfect time to lose my audience, right? If they don't have that perspective, and they may not.
Sure.
Or the book may disappear. It may, end up 100 years from now. Somebody reads it and then throws it away. But we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see where he goes with this. He's back on track, and he's a troubadour. He's defined himself as a troubadour. It's an adventure, and he has revived his spirit and his desire, which is, if he can see it, the greatest reward that he gets, which is kind of like when he says, death is awakening.
Sure.
So the death of one pursuit, right, is an awakening to another.
Yep.
Okay. For what it's worth. Thank you, Troy.
What I love about it, I mean, I keep going to this, is that, the story is in itself, about the guy, Drukpa, and he's coming in and doing this and saying this. And then there's we step out of that, look at the process, we're doing creative writing. And, being in the flow, we're creating, we're not editing, all these hints and these. And then, going through the process for myself, like you were saying, I'm flipping and flopping, or going from slave to master in my own mind, which doesn't matter which end we're talking about. But perhaps I'm a slave when I hear the word marbles and I go, okay, yeah, I know about marbles. Yeah, it connects me to this. And then I'm back in but then when I stop and just listen, and whether it makes sense, or actually when it doesn't make sense, and I observe myself without being, connected to saying, oh, that doesn't make sense, what am I thinking now? But just observe it as the words that are coming, the words, that make, like you said, they don't need to have meaning, and observe that in myself, those actual step away from that, then I'm the master. But then I flip back, and it's back and forth, and like you're saying, but then having that experience enables, like, some level of freedom. And it's like flying a plane, I think. Before you get your pilot's license, you need to do, I don't know how many hours, but you need to rack up your flight time. And once you have that amount of flight time, then you can actually fly a plane. So this is the process that I see. It's like we're giving, and you're giving your flight time to people, and people that are here observing it, they're gaining this flight time in creative writing, and fast tracking it to, and creations of what they want.
It's a window into the writer's soul, right?
Right.
Sharing very private information, very akin to therapy.
Sure.
Right? When you go and you lay down on that couch, and I've been the one in the chair taking notes, right? You don't interrupt them. You sit and you listen to this guy, this Drukpa, talk about whatever's on his mind.
Exactly.
And then you, as the therapist, and I'm placing everybody else in the position of being the therapist, right?
Right.
Because even, and like the saying goes, most people become therapists to heal themselves, right? They play with other people, they give them directions while they're searching for answers for themselves.
Yes.
Physician, heal thyself. And that's what they're doing. And it's like, okay, it's appalling, but it's true. While you're sitting there, the therapist should be paying you, right? As you try revealing all of the thoughts that are going through your mind.
Yeah.
And of course, you're in therapy, so chances are that you're not able to make sense out of them yourself.
Exactly.
So now the reader is sitting in the therapist chair. And for them, the question is, what are they going to do with what they hear?
Mm-hmm.
Right? As this exploration is both sides, but you never get the admission from the therapist that she are looking for answers,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which they can't find unless they dissect other people. And it doesn't matter whether they succeed or fail with the other person. That's incidental. That's collateral damage.
Sure.
It's interesting, how you, the therapist, avoid suicide as you go through these caverns and, places in the mind
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that, most people never explore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because chances are you become so self-critical that you can't make sense out of it yourself.
Sure.
But you keep plowing away. And this is kind of like a shared consciousness with people. Do they want to? I don't care one way or the other, whether they do or not, because I'm in a self-therapeutic situation while I'm writing, which is why there's a prohibition against editing.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
we're asking too much for you to be as subjective as possible and objective at the same time.
Great.
Where do you have to be to do that? Is it even possible?
Well,
and that's the battle that he's experiencing now with this dualism, this Western point of view.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, he's dismissed the East. Okay, nice, sounds good, but I want to play. I'm restless.
Mm-hmm.
My mind has developed a space-time continuum. And that's where I'm going now. And are there any answers? I think he's dismissed both of them prematurely, but he's got to get to a point where he did with the first one of being so confused he gave up. That's
Right.
the Eastern answer, right?
Right.
You work or you go sit under a tree somewhere.
Yeah.
But I don't think that would work today. But people, they're searching for answers. They may go to Jesus, who has all the answers, but it's not Jesus's answers you're looking for. You're looking for your own answers. Thank you, Jesus. I gotta go.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's our disciple, our doubting Thomas. Not even doubting, he does dismissing.
Right.
No, it doesn't work for me. No hard feelings.
Right.
Gotta go.
Sure.
Yeah, the card game, right? Gotta go.
Right. Right.
All in. Throw my whole soul into the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Give it all. And damn it, come up with a winning hand again. Which is principle. He didn't surrender. He could have taken the Zazen approach,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't. And now he's angry at himself because something inside of himself won't let him lose.
Yep. Well,
so he's got to work through that.
Well, it's great. Yeah, to hear you break it down, for me to break it down, and for others to, like you say, take what you can or take what comes from it. And there's no right or wrong way. And that's the freedom that I think I was talking about in the beginning. It's this freedom of what's going on here, just to observe and let things happen, and reactions, whatever they may be, will happen.
I wanted to say, you lose until you win.
Okay.
Just keep losing.
Yeah.
And when you've lost enough, you're a winner.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Was it Janis Joplin said, right? Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose.
Right. Yeah.
He's going to be free. He wants to be free. Okay. Enough.
Okay. Thanks,
Thank you,
Danny.
Troy. Yeah.
Great.
All right. We're
See
going to
you.
powder some brains later on too. Okay.
Sure.
Don't give up.
Okay.
All right. Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
man.
See you
Bye.
later. Bye.